The office Christmas party was supposed to be harmless. Ugly sweaters. Cheap wine. Fake smiles. A few awkward speeches about team spirit and another successful year. I'd been to enough of them to know the routine by heart. What I didn't expect was for my boss, Claire Anderson, the most composed, intimidating woman I'd ever worked for, to stumble into my personal space with wine on her breath and heartbreak in her eyes. And definitely not to try to kiss me. The ballroom of the downtown hotel glowed with warm lights and artificial cheer. A massive Christmas tree stood near the stage, decorated with silver ornaments and a star that looked like it cost more than my monthly rent. I adjusted my tie and scanned the room. Finance team huddled near the bar. Marketing laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. HR smiled like they were being paid extra per grin. And then there was Claire. She stood near the windows, overlooking the city, wearing a deep green dress that looked elegant without trying too hard, just like her. Her hair, usually pulled into a strict bun during office hours, fell loosely around her shoulders tonight. She looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally. Claire Anderson didn't drink at office events. Everyone knew that. She'd nurse one glass of wine all night and leave early with a polite excuse. Tonight, she was on her third. I noticed because she caught me staring and raised her glass slightly, like she was daring me to judge her. I looked away. Claire was my boss. CEO of Anderson Consulting. The woman who'd hired me straight out of grad school and turned me into one of the youngest project leads in the company. She was untouchable. At least, that's what I told myself. Hey, man, you're not leaving already, are you? Jake from operations slapped my shoulder, snapping me out of my thoughts. Thinking about it, I said. Don't. Free drinks till 10. He grinned and disappeared back into the crowd. I checked my phone. 9:18 p.m. Another 42 minutes of pretending I belonged here. I headed toward the bar, hoping to grab a soda and quietly fade into the background. That's when I heard her voice. Running away? I turned. Claire stood there, closer than I expected. Too close. Her perfume, something subtle, warm, hit me immediately. No, I said quickly. Just getting a drink. She tilted her head, studying me like she did in meetings when someone was about to say something stupid. Relax, she said. I'm not evaluating your performance. I forced a smile. Good to know. She laughed softly, then leaned against the bar. You always this nervous around me? The question caught me off guard. I wouldn't say nervous, I said carefully. Respectful. Smart answer. She ordered another glass of wine. I hesitated. Ms. Anderson. Claire, she interrupted. It's a party. You can call me Claire. Claire, I corrected. Maybe slow down a bit? Her eyebrow lifted. Are you telling your boss how much to drink? I'm telling a person who looks like she's had a long year to take care of herself. She stared at me for a moment. Then she sighed. You have no idea. We stood there in silence, the noise of the party fading into background static. I didn't expect you to stay this late, she said. I didn't expect you to either. Touché. She took a sip, then grimaced. This wine is terrible. Yet you keep drinking it. She shrugged. Tonight feels like one of those nights. One of what nights? She hesitated, then shook her head. Never mind. I shouldn't. She swayed slightly. Instinctively, I stepped closer, steadying her elbow. You okay? I asked. She looked down at my hand on her arm. Neither of us moved. The air shifted. I'm fine, she said, but her voice was softer now. Less CEO. More human. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in. Too close. I could see the faint lines at the corners of her eyes. Smell the wine. Feel her breath against my cheek. Claire, I said quietly. She looked up at me, eyes unfocused but intense. Do you know how hard it is, she said, to be in control all the time? I can imagine, I replied. No, you can't, she said, shaking her head. Everyone expects me to be perfect. Strong. Untouchable. Her fingers brushed my sleeve. I'm so tired of being alone in a room full of people. My heart started pounding. This was crossing a line. Claire, I said again, firmer this time. You're drunk. She smiled sadly. A little. She leaned in further. I realized what was happening a second too late. Her lips were inches from mine. I stepped back. The moment shattered. Her smile vanished, replaced by embarrassment. She started. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have. It's okay, I said quickly. Really? She looked away, mortified. I didn't mean to put you in that position, she said. I've had too much to drink. I exhaled slowly. You didn't do anything wrong, I said. But this isn't the time. Or the place. She nodded, swallowing hard. I'm sorry, she repeated. Then, without thinking, I added. If you ever want to talk, really talk. I'm here. She looked back at me. Something changed in her expression. Why? She asked. Because you don't deserve to feel like you're carrying everything alone. Her eyes searched mine. And then she surprised me. She laughed. Not a loud, polished laugh, but a quiet, relieved one. You're different, she said. Different how? You don't look at me like everyone else does. How do I look at you? Like I'm just. Claire. She took a shaky breath. I should go home. I can walk you to your car, I offered. She hesitated. Would you? Of course. The cold night air sobered her up a little as we stepped outside. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, settling on her coat. We walked side by side, not touching. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For stopping me. I nodded. Anytime. We reached her car. She turned to me. Tonight didn't happen, she said. Agreed. She paused, then added, but, the way you spoke to me. The way you looked at me. She met my eyes. That did happen. Before I could respond, she opened the car door and got in. As she drove away, I stood there in the snow, my heart racing. Because I knew something dangerous had just started. And neither of us was ready to admit it. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Claire standing too close, her voice unguarded, the weight of something unspoken hanging between us. The snow. The silence. The way she'd said my name like it meant more than it ever had before. By morning, I convinced myself I was overthinking. She was drunk. It was Christmas. Emotions ran high. People made mistakes. I showered, dressed, and told myself that when I walked into the office, everything would be normal. It wasn't. My phone buzzed at 6:42 a.m. Unknown instincts made my chest tighten before I even looked at the screen. Claire Anderson. I'm sorry to text you this early. I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable last night. I stared at the message. Read it again. Then a third time. She'd saved my number. I typed. Deleted. Typed again. Me. You didn't. I meant what I said, nothing inappropriate happened. Three dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Claire. Thank you for being honest with me. And for walking me out. I hesitated, then replied. Me. Anytime. I hope you got home safely. There was a pause. Longer this time. Claire. I did. I couldn't stop thinking afterward. About how you treated me. My heartbeat picked up. This was dangerous territory. Me. If this conversation feels like it's crossing a line, we can stop. Another pause. Then. Claire. I appreciate that more than you know. The dots vanished. Conversation over. I set my phone down and let out a slow breath. Work mode. That's what I needed. The office looked exactly the same as always, glass walls, polished floors, quiet urgency. But something felt different. People greeted me like usual, yet I felt hyper-aware. Every reflection in the glass. Every footstep behind me. At 9:03 a.m., my calendar notification popped up. Meeting with Claire Anderson, 9:30 a.m., private office. I froze. This was routine. I met with her at least once a week. Still, my palms started sweating. Claire's office was immaculate. No personal photos. No clutter. Just efficiency and control. She stood by the window when I walked in, back straight, hair pulled into its usual tight bun. The woman from the Christmas party looked like a dream compared to this version. Good morning, she said professionally. Good morning. She gestured to the chair. Please, sit. I did. She turned, walked to her desk, and opened a folder. We'll discuss the Westbrook proposal first, she said evenly. For 10 minutes, it was business as usual. Numbers. Deadlines. Strategy. Then she closed the folder. And now, she said quietly, I'd like to address last night. My shoulders tensed. She raised a hand. I want to be clear. I take full responsibility. You did nothing wrong. I know, I said. And I don't think less of you for it. She studied my face, like she was checking for judgment. I was embarrassed, she admitted. Still am. You don't need to be. Her lips pressed together. That's kind of you. But kindness doesn't erase boundaries. I agree. Silence stretched between us. Then she said, I trust you. That caught me off guard. You shouldn't, I said lightly. A corner of her mouth lifted. You stopped me. Most people wouldn't have. She leaned back in her chair. I want to make something very clear, she continued. Whatever personal emotions were involved last night, they will not interfere with work. I nodded. Of course. She hesitated. And, she added, I won't put you in that position again. Something about the finality in her voice made my chest tighten. That's good, I said, even though part of me didn't feel relief, just distance. She looked down briefly. Meeting adjourned, she said. I stood. As I reached the door, she spoke again. Wait. I turned. She didn't look like a CEO in that moment. She looked like a woman deciding whether to say something she couldn't take back. I meant what I said in my message, she said. About thinking. About what? About how lonely leadership can be. I nodded slowly. If you ever need to talk, I said carefully, as people, not boss and employee. I'm willing. But only if it stays respectful. Her eyes softened. That's exactly why this is complicated. The rest of the day passed in a blur. At lunch, I overheard whispers. Did you see Claire at the party? She left early. She never drinks like that. At 4:47 p.m., an email came through. From Claire Anderson. Subject: schedule change. Could you stay a little late this evening? There's something I'd like to discuss in private. I stared at the screen. Private. Again. I typed back. Of course. I didn't know why my heart was racing. Or why, deep down, I already sensed this wasn't about work at all. By 6:12 p.m., the office was almost empty. The hum of computers replaced the daytime buzz. Desks sat abandoned, coffee mugs half forgotten, coats draped over chairs like people had vanished mid-thought. I stayed at my desk, pretending to review emails I wasn't really reading. Claire's door was still closed. That alone was unusual. She was usually the last to leave, but never the last to close herself off. At 6:27 p.m., my phone chimed. Claire. You can come in now. I stood, straightened my jacket, and walked toward her office. With every step, I reminded myself. She's your boss. Stay grounded. Stay respectful. I knocked. Come in, she said. The lights in her office were dimmer than usual. Desk lamp on. Overhead lights off. Outside the window, the city glowed, quiet, distant, indifferent. Claire stood near the desk, arms folded, her posture tight. Thank you for staying, she said. Of course. She didn't ask me to sit. Instead, she walked slowly toward the window, her heels clicking softly against the floor. I won't keep you long, she said. I just didn't want this conversation happening during office hours. I waited. She took a breath. I spent all day convincing myself that I imagined last night. My chest tightened. And then I spent the rest of the day realizing I didn't. She turned to face me. You handled that situation better than I did, she said. Better than most people would have. I did what felt right. That's the problem. I frowned slightly. How is that a problem? Because, she said quietly, you didn't treat me like your boss. You didn't treat me like a fantasy. She paused. You treated me like a woman who needed someone steady. The silence grew heavy. I don't want to cross lines, she continued. But I also don't want to lie to you. I swallowed. About what? She looked directly at me. I don't trust myself around you. The words landed hard. Not dramatic. Not flirtatious. Honest. I took a slow step forward, but stopped at a respectful distance. Claire, I said carefully, then we should slow this down. She let out a breathless laugh. That's the reasonable answer. I'm serious. So am I, she said. Which is why this scares me. She leaned back against the desk. I was married once. That surprised me. No one in the company talked about her personal life. He was charming, she said. Ambitious. Everyone loved him. She smiled faintly. Including my board. What happened? I asked softly. He hated that I didn't need him, she said. So he made sure I would. I felt anger rise, but stayed quiet. He cheated, she continued. With someone who worked under me. Someone who smiled at me every day. My jaw tightened. When I found out, she said, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. She looked up at the ceiling. I fired them both, from my life. Silence. Since then, she said, I've controlled everything. No risks. No vulnerability. She met my eyes again. And then you looked at me like I was allowed to be human. I didn't answer right away. Because I knew what she was really saying. I won't be your rebound, I said finally. Her lips parted slightly. I know, she said. And I don't want you to be. Then what do you want? She hesitated. For one night, she said quietly, to not be the strongest person in the room. The air shifted. This wasn't about desire. It was about trust. You're not drunk, I said. No, she admitted. That's why this is dangerous. I took a breath. Then listen to me, I said. She straightened, instinctively attentive. If this happens, I continued, it happens on your terms, and safely. No secrets. No regret. Her eyes searched mine. And if at any moment you want to stop, I added, we stop. No explanations. She nodded slowly. I don't want to lead, she whispered. I held her gaze. Then don't. She swallowed. I took one more step closer, not touching her. If you want, I said quietly, steady and calm. I'll take the lead. Her breath caught. Not because of the words, but because of how carefully they were said. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then opened them. And nodded. Once. Her nod was barely visible. But it changed everything. Not because it meant permission. Because it meant trust. I need to say something first, I said quietly. Claire stayed where she was, hands gripping the edge of her desk like it was the only solid thing in the room. Say it. This doesn't erase who you are, I continued. Or who I am. Tomorrow, we still wake up as the same people. If at any point this feels wrong, emotionally, professionally, we stop and walk away with respect. She let out a slow breath. You're still protecting me, she said. I'm protecting both of us. That earned a small, genuine smile. Okay, she said softly. Then, show me how to not be in control. I didn't touch her right away. Instead, I moved to the desk lamp and turned it down another notch. The room softened. Shadows grew warmer, kinder. Claire watched me, curiosity mixing with nerves. Sit, I said gently, nodding toward the couch near the window. She hesitated only a second before obeying. That alone told me how much this meant to her. I sat on the opposite end, not close enough to trap her, not far enough to feel distant. The city lights flickered outside, unaware of the quiet tension inside the room. You're shaking, I said. She looked at her hands like she'd just noticed. I don't do this, she admitted. I don't let people see me unsure. You don't have to impress me, I said. You already don't. That did it. Her composure cracked, not loudly, not dramatically. Her shoulders sagged. I'm so tired, she whispered. Of being the one everyone leans on. I didn't interrupt. I make decisions all day, she continued. People's livelihoods. Futures. And when I finally stop, there's no one there. Her voice broke. I go home to silence. I moved closer, slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't. Instead, she leaned forward, resting her elbows on her knees, face in her hands. I sat beside her now. Close enough to feel her warmth. Not touching. Claire, I said gently, look at me. She did. Her eyes were wet. Unguarded. This doesn't make you weak, I said. It makes you human. A tear slipped free. I hate crying, she murmured. Then don't fight it, I replied. No one's judging you here. Her breath hitched. And then, quietly, she leaned into me. Her forehead rested against my shoulder. I froze for half a second, then slowly lifted my arm and placed it around her back. Light. Careful. She exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. I didn't plan this, she whispered. Neither did I. Does that scare you? A little, I admitted. But not enough to walk away. She nodded against my shoulder. We stayed like that for a long moment. No rush. No hunger. Just two people sharing the quiet. Eventually, she pulled back slightly. Her voice steadier now. I don't want this to be a mistake, she said. Then let's not make it one. She studied my face. What happens now? I thought for a second. Now, I said, I walk you home. We don't do anything you'll regret. Tonight stays about safety. About grounding. She blinked. That's it? For tonight, I said. Yes. Her lips parted in surprise. Then she smiled, soft, grateful, real. You're stronger than you look, she said. So are you, I replied. I grabbed my coat, waited while she did the same. Before we left the office, she stopped near the door. Thank you, she said again. For staying, I corrected. She nodded. Outside, the city was quiet. Cold. Honest. As we walked side by side, our hands brushed once. This time, neither of us pulled away. And I knew. The hardest part wasn't what almost happened. It was what would happen next. Monday morning felt colder than it should have. Not outside, the city was already waking up, traffic humming, coffee shops glowing, but inside my chest. That quiet warmth from Friday night was gone, replaced by something sharp and uncertain. The office doors slid open. And everything felt wrong. Claire didn't say good morning. She walked past my desk without looking at me, heels clicking with purpose, posture flawless, face unreadable. CEO mode. Full armor. I sat there for a second longer than usual, staring at my screen. So that's how she chose to handle it. Professional. Distant. Safe. I told myself it was the right choice. It still hurt. By noon, I realized it wasn't just me. The entire office felt the shift. Claire was efficient, more than usual. Meetings shorter. Decisions faster. No small talk. No pauses. She's in a mood, someone whispered near the break room. End of year pressure, another replied. I knew better. Every time our eyes almost met across a room, she turned away. Like Friday night had been erased. At 2:18 p.m., my phone buzzed. Claire. Can you send me the updated projections before 3? Just that. No warmth. No tension. No acknowledgement. I replied professionally. On it. My chest tightened. I'd offered steadiness. She'd chosen walls. That evening, I stayed late, partly because of work, partly because I didn't want to go home to my own thoughts. At 7:02 p.m., most of the office lights were off. Except hers. I hesitated outside her door. This wasn't about romance. This was about clarity. I knocked. Come in, she said, voice crisp. She didn't look up when I entered. Did you need something? She asked. Yes, I said calmly. A conversation. She paused, then closed her laptop. About work? About Friday. Her jaw tightened. I don't think that's necessary. I do. Silence. She finally looked at me. And for the first time since Friday, I saw it. Fear. You said you didn't want regret, I continued. Distance without explanation becomes regret. She stood. This is exactly why I pulled back, she said. I can't afford confusion. I'm not asking for promises, I said. I'm asking for honesty. She turned away, hands resting on the desk. I spent all weekend reminding myself who I am, she said quietly. What my position demands. And what about what you need? I asked. She laughed softly, without humor. Need is a luxury. I took a breath. Friday night, I said, you didn't ask me to fix your life. You asked not to be alone in it. Her shoulders stiffened. And I stayed, I added. Not because you're my boss, but because I chose to. She turned back to face me. Her voice dropped. That's what scares me. Why? Because, she said, you didn't chase. You didn't take. You didn't push. She swallowed. You stayed steady. And I don't know how to protect myself from that. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said something I hadn't planned to. Then let me be clear. She looked at me. I'm not here to blur your life, I said. But I won't pretend Friday didn't matter. Her eyes searched mine. You don't have to decide anything today, I added. But don't erase yourself to stay safe. Her breath caught. The silence stretched. Finally, she spoke. Tomorrow, she said. Have dinner with me. Somewhere public. Neutral. Not a command. An invitation. As equals, she added. My heart steadied. I'd like that. She nodded once. And just like that, the distance shifted, not gone, but honest. As I turned to leave, she said quietly. Thank you, for not disappearing. I paused at the door. Neither of us should, I replied. The restaurant wasn't fancy. That was the first thing I noticed, and appreciated. No private rooms. No hushed exclusivity. Just warm lighting, quiet music, and tables close enough that conversations blurred into background comfort. Neutral ground. Claire arrived 5 minutes late. Not because she was careless, but because she was nervous. I could tell by the way she paused at the door, scanning the room like she was stepping into unfamiliar territory. When she saw me, her shoulders relaxed slightly. Hi, she said. Not hello. Not good evening. Just hi. It felt important. She wore a simple coat, hair loose again. No boardroom armor. No performance. Thank you for suggesting somewhere public, she said as we sat. I figured it would help us remember we're just people. She smiled faintly. I forget that sometimes. The waiter arrived. We ordered. Small talk followed, safe topics, easy laughter. For the first time since the Christmas party, things felt normal. Until she said it. I don't know how to be wanted without control. The words landed quietly between us. I didn't rush to answer. I think, I said slowly, you've spent so long being needed that being chosen feels risky. She considered that. Need comes with rules, she said. Want doesn't. And that scares you. Yes. She took a sip of water. At work, people respect me because they have to, she continued. In relationships. I don't know who I am if I'm not managing the outcome. I leaned back slightly, giving her space. You don't have to manage this, I said. You just have to show up. She laughed softly. You make it sound easy. It's not, I admitted. But it's simpler than pretending. She looked at me then, not as a CEO, not as someone weighing risk. But as a woman asking herself a hard question. What do you want? She asked. I didn't dodge it. I want honesty, I said. Whatever form that takes. She nodded slowly. I can do honesty, she said. I just can't promise certainty. I'm not asking for it. That surprised her. The food arrived. Conversation eased again, lighter this time. She told me about her first job, how she'd cried in the bathroom on her third day and almost quit. I told her about mine, how I'd taken this job because I admired her leadership long before I knew her as a person. "That's ironic," she said. "Why?" "Because I've spent months wondering why you never tried to impress me." I smiled. "I figured if I ever did, it should be for the right reasons." Her eyes softened. When dinner ended, neither of us rushed to leave. Outside, the night air was calm. She stood beside me on the sidewalk. "I don't regret Friday," she said quietly. "I'm glad. But," she added, "I need to move slowly." I nodded. Then we moved slowly. She exhaled, relieved. "Thank you for not turning this into something it's not." "And thank you," I said, "for not pretending it's nothing." She smiled. This time, when our hands brushed, she let it happen. Something changed after dinner. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But people noticed. Claire still ran meetings with precision. Still made sharp decisions. Still commanded rooms without raising her voice. Yet there was a difference. She listened more. Paused longer. And for the first time since I'd known her, she delegated without hovering. Including to me. "Can you handle the Crestline negotiation?" she asked one morning. "Not I want you to. Not I expect you to. Can you?" "Yes," I said. She nodded. "I trust you." That word again. Trust. Across the conference table, a few people exchanged glances. They felt it too. We didn't text much outside of work. That was her boundary, and I respected it. But sometimes, rarely, she'd stop by my desk. "How did the meeting go? What do you think about this angle?" Simple questions. Equal questions. Once, as she walked away, she said quietly, "Thank you for dinner." No one else heard it. But I did. The shift didn't go unnoticed everywhere. On Thursday afternoon, she called an emergency board meeting. Closed doors. Long hours. By evening, the tension in the office was thick enough to taste. At 8:11 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Claire. Are you still here?" I hesitated, then replied. "Yes." A moment later. "Can you come up?" Her office looked different again. Lights low. Jacket off. Sleeves rolled up, not casually, but like someone preparing for a fight. She didn't ask me to sit. "They know," she said. "Know what?" "That I've changed," she replied. "That I'm not as sealed off." I frowned. "That's not a weakness." "They think it is," she said sharply. "Or at least, a liability." My stomach tightened. One of them suggested I'm distracted. I held my temper. And I reminded them," she said, voice steady, "that the company's highest growth year happened under my leadership." She exhaled. "But they pushed." "For what?" "For reassurance," she said. "That nothing in my personal life would compromise my judgment." She finally looked at me. "And then they asked about you." Silence dropped hard between us. "What did you say?" I asked. "That you're one of my strongest leads," she replied. "That your performance speaks for itself." She hesitated. "And that whatever exists between us has not crossed professional boundaries." I nodded slowly. That was the right answer. "Yes," she said. But her eyes told a different story. It still felt like a test. I stepped closer, but stopped short. "Claire," I said calmly, "you don't owe anyone access to your heart to prove your competence." She laughed softly. "Tell that to a board of men who've never been alone in their success." I met her gaze. "Then let me ask you something," I said. She straightened, instinctively attentive again. "Are you unsure," I continued, "or are they?" Her breath caught. She looked away. I don't want to lose what I've built, she said. And I don't want to be something you hide, I replied gently. She turned back to me. I would never hide you, she said firmly. Then don't minimize yourself to make them comfortable, I said. She searched my face. And if they push harder? Then, I said, steady and certain. You decide whose voice matters more. She closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, there was clarity there.